Hi, welcome back to my channel. A little while ago I reached 1,000 subscribers, which is very exciting, and it was also my 1 year anniversary on YouTube. And for that video I asked people whether they had any questions, so people submitted questions, and one of the questions I received, which was asked by Joseph, was what 10 books would be my top 10 deserted island books. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 10 books that I would take with me if I somehow in advance knew that I was going to be stuck on a deserted island for an indefinite amount of time. There are, of course, a couple of assumptions that I'm making. First of all, the most useful books to me in a deserted island situation would be anything like surviving on a deserted island for dummies. I have absolutely no survival skills, no wildlife skills. I can't make a fire, I can't do anything. So we're just going to assume that I have the capability of surviving on this island. And we're also going to assume that I am not limited in terms of weight. So I'm in this strange scenario not like physically carrying these books with me. You know, maybe we're bringing back exile. You know, I'm just going to be exiled onto an island where there is some form of food that will be provided for me. In that extremely unlikely situation, these are the 10 books that I would take with me. First of all, I would take a book with me that I think could provide me some comfort. That is about people in difficult situations having to do, you know, what they are tasked to do, regardless of how they feel about it, and that is Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. Admittedly, I have an edition that is like 3 separate books, but I would argue that Lord of the Rings is actually just one story. It was originally meant to just be one book, but it was because of the pressure of the publisher that it was divided into 3. So I'm just gonna count it as one book, one story, and I think this would be my first choice of book to take with me. I absolutely adore Lord of the Rings. It's one of my favorite stories of all time, and I think I would find a lot of comfort in reading about Sam and Frodo's journey, all of the other hobbits. And I think I could definitely find some meaning in the messages of hope and stuff that is quite a big part of Lord of the Rings. The second book I would take with me is a book that I don't actually like. However, I feel like it just seems appropriate, and perhaps if I am in the shoes of the protagonist, I might appreciate the story more, and that is Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. This is, of course, the absolute classic of a person being stranded on an uninhabited island, although in the long term Crusoe doesn't actually stay alone on this island. However, it is very much the archetypical template of the shipwrecked story. Again, I didn't really enjoy this book when I read it for the first time, which, to be fair, is about, I would say, about 10 years ago. So maybe over time I have developed some more appreciation of what Defoe's trying to do in this book. I do quite like Defoe's other writing. I really enjoyed Journal of the Plague Year. Maybe I really appreciate that book because I have lived through a pandemic. So maybe I just need to live through being shipwrecked to truly enjoy Robinson Crusoe. The next 3 books are all books that I think would either be comforting or would bring me joy, because, you know, I would be quite bored just sitting on an island by myself. So perhaps I would like to think about social gatherings and, you know, live vicariously through other people. And for that I would bring Emma by Jane Austen. Emma is my favourite of Jane Austen's novels, so I think this would be a really good choice. I think it would be really nice to read a book where the biggest issue is like, oh, who is my best friend going to marry, rather than, you know, being on an island and eyeing up that seagull who's eyeing up my food and just having the whole struggle of life and death going on. Another author that I think is just really fun is Terry Pratchett. So the book that I would take would be Equal Rights, which is the next book in the Discworld series that I am due to read, because I am reading them actually in publication order rather than... There are different ways to read the Discworld. There are dozens of novels in this world, and you can start in different places. There are different groups of novels that have like the same characters, even though in general most of the books do stand alone quite well. I'm reading them in publication order because that's the type of person I am, and I have already read part of Equal Rights. Absolutely loved it. Pratchett is just such a wonderful writer. And I feel like, you know, being on a deserted island means that I can finish this book, which I'm sure would bring me a lot of amusement. In my exile, I think there would also be moments where I'd feel perhaps a bit more nostalgic or in a dark mood, and for that mood I will take Poison by Chris Whitting. This is a book that isn't very well known. It was published in 2003 and it's a young adult slash children's book. It's a book that I read when I was about 10 and it's one of my absolute favourite books from that period of my life. One of the things that kind of blew my mind is that it's a book that doesn't really have a neat happy ending. And it has this really dark and grim setting. And I think if you're in the right mood for it, I think Poison would be perfect. Speaking of dark moods, I would also take a book that I haven't read yet. And part of the reason that I haven't read it yet is because it's so long. But, you know, I will have so much time on my deserted island. So I'm also bringing The Stand by Stephen King. This is 1,300 pages of, I think The Stand is about a pandemic? Do correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming it's going to be epic. I'm assuming there's going to be tons and tons of characters. I'm assuming that Stephen King will really dig into the dark underbelly of human impulses, which will be perfect because I will not be around humans. So perhaps this book will make me feel better about the fact that I am just all alone on my little island. Speaking of having a lot of time, I figured I might as well take the entire collection of Shakespeare's plays. I have, of course, read some of them, but there are still plenty more for me to read, which means that I will have the whole gamut of human emotions all in one book for me to enjoy. Next, a book that I will again have a nice amount of time to actually read this, and this is Camilla by Fanny Burney. Last year I read Cecilia by Fanny Burney, which is an equally long book, and I really loved Cecilia. I actually made a separate video just on that one book. Burney is a really great writer, so I think there will be a lot in this book for me to chew over while I have all of the time in the world. Speaking of time, I might struggle with the concept of the passing of time, considering I'm just, you know, by myself, no calendar. I assume I don't have a phone, so I'll have to like keep track of what day it is. And it's very likely in those circumstances that time will kind of lose all meaning. So the next book I have is Orlando by Virginia Woolf, which is also a book in which time passes very strangely and this main character lives for centuries. Orlando was one of the biggest surprises for me of last year. I absolutely adore this book. I would love to reread it as well. There were so many sentences that really resonated with me. So I think even in my situation of exile, I think I would very much enjoy this book and I would very much enjoy re-engaging with it. Then finally, the last book that I would take with me in this arbitrary scenario in which I would be constrained to 10 books, which I'm not entirely sure how that would actually happen, but you know, we're going with it. The last book I would take with me is the plays of Oscar Wilde. Sometimes you just want to be amused, and I think Oscar Wilde's plays are an excellent way of doing that. I have read The Importance of Being Earnest and very much enjoyed it, but there are many other plays in this collection that I haven't tried yet that I think I will really enjoy. So those are all of the books that I would take with me on a deserted island. Do let me know whether you would take any of these books, whether you would be like, Celine, that is a horrible book to take. Or if you have any other thoughts, I would be very happy to hear them. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!